Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sports 1440. My name is Brian Swain, sitting in for Paul Sir this week. Paul is he's away for a family reunion down in Iowa, so we are hoping to connect with Paul in just a couple moments here, talk to him, and get his thoughts on what has obviously been a major week in the world of basketball, literally the world of basketball on the Olympic stage. We've had the men's and women's tournaments going on at the games in Paris, both for 5-on-5 and 3x3 basketball, and obviously a disappointing results for Canada, as none of the teams will be on the podium, but we'll get into that and break that down a little bit as we get going on here today. Coming up in our second segment at 10:20, we're going to be joined by Doug McLean. Doug, of course, is the voice of the Edmonton Stingers, also the voice of the Alberta Golden Bears and Pandas basketball teams, and he was down in Paris to catch some of the games too. So we're going to be chatting all kinds of things with Doug. Of course, the Stingers also had their season unfortunately come to an end last week too. So it was a difficult few days for basketball fans in Canada and here in Edmonton as well. I am joined by our producer, Ryan Reed. Ryan, how's it going this morning?
I just came off a show, so I feel already have a warm-up here. Got my layup lines in, so to speak, and
yeah, no, you're like you're in mid-game form already.
Ball. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So you might have to carry this here. I know we have a poll this week. We got that up on Twitter.
I'm going to be putting up right away.
You have me put it up right away. Okay, well, I'll explain our question here while you put that up. We're asking people, and you can head over to our Twitter page at @basketball_show to voice your opinion on this one. We're asking, what player did the Canadian men's basketball team miss most from their Olympic roster? And we got 4 choices on there: Benedict Mathurin, Shaedon Sharpe, Zach Edey, and Andrew Wiggins. Obviously, with the Canadian men being eliminated in the quarterfinals, which I think was certainly, well, it was disappointing to everyone, and I think sooner than a lot of people thought they would get knocked off. And there were some very, very good players, and players that could have played a very significant role with this team that were not on the roster for various reasons or another, whether it be injury or personal choice or focusing on their NBA career. And in the case of Andrew Wiggins, even some mysterious situations surrounding his NBA team. So whatever the reason, they could have used any one of those guys. So head over to our Twitter page, @basketball_show, and give us your thoughts on that. And also, of course, if you have any thoughts, you can hit us up on our text line. Ryan, what's that?
Sorry?
Our text line, please.
833-401-1440. Sorry, I'm taking Paul's in now. So
Paul is in now. Okay, we've connected with Paul from Iowa. Let's go. I know Paul's got a lot to say here, so we don't want to waste any time. We'll jump right into it. Paul, how you doing?
Hello.
There we go. Paul.
There we go.
How are you doing?
Hey. Doing great. Thank you. Good to talk to you guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm sitting in a very rural area, so we might have a little connection issue. So
well, you're coming in loud and clear. Must be that crisp Iowa air that's carrying the signals here. So, Paul, of course, I know
the dreams.
Exactly. We have a short show this week, of course, and so many things are happening in the world of basketball, and I know you've got a lot of things you probably want to talk about. So I'll almost turn the floor over to you here. What do you want to talk about, Paul?
Well, let's talk first, guys, about Canada's performance in the Olympics. And by that, I mean in its totality. I think it's safe to say, guys, and jump in whenever you want to, but I think it's safe to say that the expectations were very, very high for all three teams. And to walk away without a medal, I know it's not just a disappointment, but I think it's something a bit more than that. I think it's time for a bit of soul searching, and I think that's going to have to be the outcome of this, because on one hand, for the men, let's just start with the men, because I think people felt maybe the most certain that the men would be in the thick of it. For a medal. I guess you could argue that the 3x3 women would also fit that category, and the women's 5-on-5 team was a bit of a wait and see. But I think with the men's exit against France, which was no joke, by the way, because France is playing really well. They look great in the semifinals, and now they're going to square up with the Americans. They're for real. But I guess what I'd be curious about from you guys is after, watching the Olympics start to move forward and seeing Canada in the group of death, as it was called, and then come out of that 3-0, feeling awfully good about themselves. What do you think happened in the game against France? What factors entered into their losing that game?
Well, I'm sure Ryan and I will jump on this a bit later, too. I'll just give my quick thoughts on this, maybe give it over to Ryan. I think a couple things, Paul. I think, well, you said it first. France is a good team. There's a reason that they're playing today. I don't think we can discount the home court advantage. I mean, to beat France in France was going to be difficult, and it obviously is proving difficult. And I think too that this was the most difficult matchup for Canada. This was probably the first game where we saw that their lack of size hurt them.
Really good observation. Curious on your thoughts, Ryan.
It's honestly, it creates an interesting storyline in the final that I'll be cheering so hard for France. If Joel Embiid loses against the team he declined to play for in the gold medal game. That was just a quick little insert here before I talk about Canada, but that'll be all time, and I think that'll be hilarious. Poetic justice in its finest. And then if he leaves them to join Cameroon and play for them, that'll be awesome too.
Yep.
Yeah, Canada. It's actually kind of swinging it back to the poll, which is now up, by the way. So go on Twitter and vote on the poll that we just talked about earlier. Not having that big man is so crucial. Zach Edey leaving the Olympics to play Summer League, which is kind of a funny sentence in and of itself. Leaving the Olympics to play Summer League. But having him as the big man there would have been so important to combat some of that size, especially with the States when they're rolling AD and Bam Adebayo. One of them is like their third center. So needing that size moving forward is going to be so important. But again, coming out of the group stage 3-0, thinking you're the best team in the tournament for the most part, then just losing to a team that you shouldn't lose to is just embarrassing.
Well, it's interesting, guys. Size, absolutely. We identified that on our show, that was going to be an issue for Canada, and it certainly in this game was. But I think that what I read into this is the old notion of not being ready for prime time. And I think that's part of the international experience, that basketball is maybe a bit different than a lot of other sports, because team culture in all team sports is important. But international team culture is different than NBA team culture. And, I've reflected on our lineup, and I think Canada, in terms of the way the way our teams were presented to the world, I think is a problem, because I think there's the cart before the horse of, we have all kinds of NBA players on our teams, and they're all really good players. You have a superstar in Gilgeous-Alexander, somebody you thought was going to be a star who absolutely wasn't, and certainly mentally was not ready, in Jamal Murray for all intents and purposes. But beyond that, the NBA guys, as good as they are, they're C-level players. Dylan Brooks is a C player in the NBA. RJ is a B player, B+. He played well. I thought he was a real bright spot for the Canadians, as was Gilgeous-Alexander. But I just sense that they were not ready for the toughness that is required when it comes down to the money, when it's money time. They weren't ready as a team mentally. And they had a lot of adversity, the foul calls, the refereeing. But that's FIBA basketball. And I go back to something we've talked about, guys, on the show. NBA is entertainment basketball. FIBA is real basketball. Big guys are in the middle. It's more physical. Guys shoot the ball really, really well. It's a whole different mindset. And the games are only 40 minutes long. And I think Canada, the men, when it came down to it against France, they just were not ready for that moment.
That 40-minute point you make, Paul, is really interesting, because I think games can get away on you really quickly. Obviously they used to playing 40 minutes in college, but if you're used to 48-minute games in the NBA, you can have a bad first quarter. Heck, you could have a bad first half and still have plenty of time to make that ground up. You have one bad quarter, and suddenly you're looking at only 30 minutes to make it up. And I just find it fascinating to watch kind of almost the mentality of guys who are used to playing an NBA-length game now having to do it in an NBA game, or sorry, in a FIBA game, an Olympic game. And you watch that, you're even watching as a fan. your feeling about a 12-point deficit to say at halftime is much different than it would be in the NBA.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. In the NBA, that you don't really even pay attention to a deficit up to 20 points because there's so much time in the second half to make that up. You're 100% correct. But look at how the Americans eked out.
Yeah.
Just by the great shooting of Steph Curry and some tremendous play from the elderly LeBron James, and I say that tongue in cheek. The guy's been remarkable. And Embiid finally had a good game. But what they had to do to find a way to overcome Serbia was incredible. And I knew this in my bones, is that don't pay attention to the preliminary rounds of the exhibition games. When you get to the medal rounds, the Europeans are a whole different animal. They play at their highest level, and they're going to find every possible opportunity to beat you. And they did everything but that with the Americans. So I think that North American syndrome within the FIBA game is very, very real. I don't think you'd ever say Steve Kerr is going to get Coach of the Year for, he's going to get a lot of criticism after this is all over, even if they win the gold medal. That's going to cover a lot up, and everybody expects him to win the gold. But it's been a clumsy tournament for the Americans as well as for the Canadians.
It has, Paul. Paul, you haven't seen our Twitter poll yet, have you?
I have not.
Okay, good. Then you'll be going into this blind. So we've got the question: is what if there was one player that the Canadian team, men's team, was most missing that can make a difference to that roster? Who would it be? And we got 4 choices out there. But if there was one player that this team could have had that didn't have for whatever the reason may be, whether it's injury, personal choice, whatever it is, that could have maybe made a difference, who would that be to you?
Well, for me, it would be Zach Edey, and for the reason that Ryan touched on, just not even having that option with a big who can score with his back to the basket, like the Canadians have. I think that was just a gaping hole that at some point could really bite them in the butt, and ultimately was one of many factors of why they ended up losing to France. But I would say Zach. The other players out there, and there are so many that are good players, I don't know that they would have made the difference myself in terms of this. I think the attendance, I think the expectation that Jamal Murray was going to be the Jamal Murray we expected was huge. If people are saying Andrew Wiggins, to me, absolutely not. Wiggins, to me, would have been a non-issue because you don't know who's going to show up with him at all. He's so unpredictable. But there are some other looming stars that I think the 2028 team could and probably should look quite different when they go to LA.
Yeah, you mentioned Edey and Wiggins. Our other options we had on there are Mathurin and Shaedon Sharpe, who both were unable to play due to injuries. So I mean, both of those guys. I thought they could have used somebody else to just step up, and there were times especially on Tuesday against France, where just like somebody else needed to step up and give them a bucket. And I thought those are two guys that they're quickly proving themselves to be explosive scorers in the NBA, and they could have been used in that scenario.
I think you're right. Mathurin in particular, I'm just not yet sure about Sharpe, and I'm not sure about Sharpe. I'm not sure about Sharpe in FIBA. Because again, the way you score in FIBA is a bit different. Mathurin's game, I think, might translate a bit better to the FIBA game at this juncture, but there's no doubt Sharpe's is evolving into a real good basketball player.
That's fair for sure. Paul, we just got a couple minutes here. Maybe give you your thoughts on the rest of the other two teams.
Well, real quickly on the women's 5-on-5 team, I'll make it short. Disappointment wouldn't even begin to describe my viewpoint, and I think the fact that Edmonton is so close to the women's program, and over the last couple of years, they have been less and less engaged in our communities, and I think we've lost touch. But I'm not a big fan of hype, and I think the Americans and the Canadians are so guilty of overhyping their teams. Win games, then hype. Don't tell everybody how great you are and do all of this fluffy stuff and then go out and get your butt handed to you 3 games in a row like the women did. Like that to me is, I just think the culture is wrong in Canada in terms of how Canada basketball approaches marketing its team, to be very direct about it. They need to get tougher and to be able to compete at the highest level in FIBA basketball. And as far as our 3x3 women, I know all of our hearts ache and break for Michelle, Catherine, Paige, and Casey because of how hard they've worked, the vision they've had, what they have toiled through to get to this moment. But one of the things I know the rest of the biggest disadvantage the Canadian women had was the FIBA rules that kept them out of 2021, because I am firmly convinced they would have been standing on the podium with a medal, and most likely the gold medal at that time, because they were so much better than everybody else in the world. But now 3 years down the road, the rest of the world has been working really hard for one thing and one thing only, and that's to catch the Canadians. And they did. The Germans did. We saw the Germans 2 years ago in Edmonton at our event, and our girls just walloped them. And then, the U.S., the fact that they were able to throw 4 players together, a talented team, and able to find a way to win. Spain has gotten so much better. I guess what I'm saying is the rest of the world is caught up. And there are other thoughts I have on how their program's handled that I won't delve into right now. That's for a different time. But overall, I think the rest of the world caught up, and there just wasn't enough gas in the tank. Michelle coming back from the injury she came back from. Casey's been banged up. I just think it's just unfortunate that there just wasn't enough gas in the tank, like I said, to finish with a medal, because they certainly deserved it.
Absolutely. That was a heartbreaker, I think, for all of us who know them very well. But Paul, thank you for taking a couple minutes here to join us, and enjoy your time there and your family reunion down in Iowa. And I know you're going to be back on right at the end of the show here with a special message for everybody. So we'll look forward to hearing that then. And thank you, and enjoy the rest of your time there.
Guys, thank you so much, and thanks for steering the ship. I always think of the Star Trek series, so you guys are on the brig, and it's you're doing a great job. Thanks so much, and to everybody out there, thanks for listening for our show, and we can't wait to get back in the fall. So thanks, Brian and Ryan.
All right, there you go. Paul Sir, our host, joining us from Iowa. My name is Brian Swain. We'll be right back with Doug McLean on the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. 1440. We were powered by the 3x3 at Fan Park on July 5th to 7th, but now we're powered by something else. But welcome back to the Basketball Show. My name is Brian Swain, filling in for Paul Sir today, and really excited now to be joined by a longtime friend, someone worked with a lot in the past, and everyone here knows in local basketball, he is the voice of the Edmonton Stingers, voice of the Alberta Golden Bears basketball team, voice of the Alberta Panthers basketball team, and he was just in Paris too. So we got lots to talk about with our guest, Doug McLean. Doug, how's it going?
I'm good, Brian. How are you?
I'm awesome. Let's jump right into it, Doug. We have so much to get into here. I want to start with the Stingers. Of course, their season wrapped up last week, a disappointing playoff loss to Calgary. But otherwise, I would say, on the whole, this was a pretty successful season. They finished with the second best record in the West. The team continues to be a hit in terms of, getting fans out there and having a great experience and a great atmosphere there down at the Expo Center. Hard to believe that this was the sixth season of the team already, and really I kind of consider it the fifth in the sense that one was kind of that COVID bubble season, but this was the fifth one, in front of fans and playing a traditional schedule. And just to get your overall thoughts, Doug, on the season for the Stingers.
Yeah, I think a 13-7 record, like you said, Brian, finished second in the West. They put themselves in a really good position to get to championship weekend. They had a really hot start, cooled off a bit, and then I thought they played 2 games at the beginning of July. They beat Vancouver at home and then beat Brampton. Brampton, not a great team during the course of the season, but of course Vancouver will play in the championship game. Those 2 games, they played a complete 4 quarters. I thought, wow, this team might have really found another level to get to. but they had such a brutal schedule. I mean, playing 9 games in 20 days in one stretch. And I think they ran out of gas a little bit over the course of July. And, you and I were sort of chatting over the course of this week about just maybe being a little bit shy at times on just that next level player, someone who, again, I always say 7 seconds left to go, you're down 1. Who's the player who's getting that basketball? They had some options, but it was never overly clear. So overall, a really good season, a really deep team, and I think a fun team to watch for the most part. But there were just moments in each game. We saw that in the game against Calgary in the playoffs, just blips in that third quarter where they just lost momentum, couldn't keep up with some of that real top-end talent that some of the teams had. And unfortunately, in this case for the Stingers, it resulted in the end of their season. But again, as you said, overall really positive, great atmosphere at Expo. Fans continue to come out, and it's legitimate sellouts in a lot of cases. So overall, really positive year, I think, for Jordan Baker and the Stingers, and hopefully some good momentum heading into next season.
Absolutely. Speaking of Jordan, I mean, I think you were there calling the games with the Bears when Jordan was back in his first year, I think. Is that right?
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
yeah,
Definitely.
So you've seen Jordan go from being, a youth sports rookie to playing pro ball, all his journey in between there. Now coach and GM. This was of course, his first full season as coach and GM. And what have you kind of noticed in the growth of Jordan in his new roles, especially this dual role this season?
Yeah, I think Jordan's a really good coach. I mean, a really good basketball mind. And as you said, I mean, he had all kinds of success. Well, first at Harry Ainley, and then he comes to the U of A and has good success there. They, get to a national final, lose to Carleton. Has some dominant seasons. I mean, arguably, well, maybe not even arguably, the greatest Golden Bear basketball player of all time. And, so he, coming from a great basketball family, of course, his mom Trix, former Pandas coach, his dad Doug has coached, and both of them played at the U of A as well. So I think he brings a lot to the table as a coach. He's seen it all. And I think you're seeing the evolution of him as a coach as well. I think this year with the Stingers, as GM, I think you started to see the kind of team that he really wants to mold, a team that'll push the pace, a team that is defensively really, really sound, a team that doesn't necessarily rely on the three-point shot that you see a lot of teams do nowadays. This is a team that, in my mind, when they were at their best, they were a north-south team going to the rim. And again, that's how Jordan often played himself. And so I think you see a team that is well-rounded, is deep. I think, like I said earlier, the next evolution, I think, is just to find that balance in the rotation of how do you identify those guys that are going to be maybe playing a few more minutes, you're stretching the minutes for some of them a little bit, and just find ways to really leverage some of that skill a little differently. But overall, again, I think Jordan's done an excellent job and will continue to do so as he continues to himself learn how to find a way to bring players in, round it out. And you've heard him talk a lot about that Stingers culture and wanting people to come here and want to come back. And I think they've done a really good job of that. And so that's a credit to him. It's a credit to the ownership group and the staff of the Stingers, making it feel like a place that players want to be. And that's why the Stingers have been arguably the most consistent franchise in the league from day one. And absolutely Jordan's been a huge part of that.
There's always roster turnover in sports, and especially in a league like the CEBL. And I think the Stingers have actually been, especially in what we'll call minor pro basketball, have been a model of stability. There will be some changes next year, of course. So, I mean, one player we know who won't be back is another guy you would have seen right from the beginning of his career here, Brody Clark, when starting with the U of A and spending his seasons there, and then has been a fixture with the Stingers from the beginning. Is their all-time leading scorer. And boy, it was tough to see. You could see at the end of the game on Sunday when they got knocked off by Calgary how much this meant to him. And Brody, of course, has said that he's hanging them up at the end of this season, going to pursue his professional career back home in Ontario. So that was it for Brody, and you could see what it meant to him. And if I can get your reflections, Doug, on what Brody has meant to that team, and also to, as you can speak to, from having seen him beginning his time here in Edmonton with the Golden Bears, just this basketball community.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Brian. I think he's just been so important to the community here. And it's interesting. I mean, Jordan Baker's last season as a player Brody Clark was on that Golden Bears roster. He was a redshirt, actually was hurt, didn't play. Otherwise, those two would have played together for a season too. So they've been tied together for a long time as well. And, Brody Clark, a player that it's been really fascinating to watch him because, he's added so much to his game over the course of time. I mean, the one thing he's always had is incredible footwork. I mean, some of the best footwork I've ever seen. And a player that I think started to learn how to play big when he needed to, but then started to add that mid-range game, earlier in his U of A career. And then he started to stretch that. He became a pretty decent three-point shooter as well, and a guy that could really stretch defenders out. And I think just a guy that clearly embraced being an Edmontonian, being here, being part of this city, part of this community in his time as a Golden Bear, and in his time now as a Stinger. And I know, in hearing interviews with him over the course of the last month or so that, even though he is heading back to Ontario, Edmonton's a big, big part of his life and is, he considers himself an Edmontonian, and this will often, or I should say long, be a place that he sees as important. And yeah, I think it just demonstrates that legacy. You look at Jordan Baker, we talked about him and his legacy in Edmonton basketball, and then you carry that over to a player like Brody Clark. So that's what, to me, has made this community so strong, is that you've got players that have been here for such a long time and have made contributions, and are players that people in this city recognize and have been able to go and watch and enjoyed to watch over the years. And I think that legacy that the Stingers have now been able to build on, and the connection from it to the U of A, I think is partly what has also made this Stinger program so successful in its first 6 years.
We actually had a texter follow up about this, Doug. He said that 7-second player you were just talking about, he thought the Canadian Olympic team was missing it. That player that real good players that have the ego-driven, I'm the best in the moment, he said that wasn't there, and that, not to change gears on you, but he said that was what they were missing. Do you have a take on that at all?
Yeah, it's true. And I just want to clarify that point. I don't want to make it sound like the Stingers they didn't have a player that could be that, or they're lacking talent. That's not what I'm saying. I know that's, I just want to emphasize that it's just, you're right. And you hit the word. Sometimes it is that ego to be able to do it. And the Stingers have players like that. I think sometimes you just have to define it a little bit. And I thought at times that may have been a little bit missing. People may disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But I just want to clarify that. But yeah, to your point about the Olympics, yeah, I think that's true too. I think, obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the guy that you would have looked at to be that. To me, I'm not sure that was the issue. I had the chance to see them play Australia, and we came out of that game, my friend and I, we both talked about the fact that while Canada played quite well in the second half, it just felt like there was somebody missing. And so I don't know if it's necessarily that 7-second player. To me, there was just another player off the bench that could continue the momentum and carry the energy that they may have built in stretches. And that seemed to be an issue for Canada throughout this tournament. They just could never find a consistent level of momentum. And again, hey, you're playing the best teams in the world. Of course, they're out there to compete too, and they're going to take that momentum away from you. But it just felt like Canada could never kind of maintain that energy, even against France in the quarter, where maybe they're going to get back into this thing. They just could never find a way to carry it. And it seemed like they were missing somebody, again, whether that was Wiggins coming off the bench who could just provide a spark defensively or offensively, Zach Edey in the paint who could provide you a little bit of dynamic play defensively. To me, that was a bigger issue than maybe that lack of that 7-second guy. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is that. Murray banged up, could normally be that for you too if you needed. But to me, they were lacking something, just lacking another energy player they could put in at key moments, and that to me seemed to be the issue.
Well put. That was Scalding Gord texting in.
Scalding Gord. There we go. Thank you, Scalding Gord. Listening to the basketball show on Sports 1440. My name is Brian Swain. We're joined with Doug McLean, voice of the Edmonton Stingers, Alberta Golden Bears, and Alberta Pandas basketball as well. And Doug was in Paris, so we're talking a little bit of Olympics here. Doug, tell me what the atmosphere looked. I mean, it looked incredible on TV in the stadium there, and there was, Dan Schulman on the broadcast. Every Canadian game was guesstimating there to be in the hundreds. Number of Canadians fans there. How did you find it? Did you get a chance? Were you guys in a quote-unquote Canadian cheering section, or what was it like?
No, well, I wasn't. So it was my friend and I ended up in different. He'd bought his tickets earlier. I got mine a little bit later. So we were kind of separated by a few a few sections. Yeah, I would agree there were lots of Canadians there. There wasn't really a way to have there be a Canadian section. My understanding, they've done ticketing a little differently. In years past, you would go through your National Olympic Committee to get tickets, and so you might have more carved out sections. But even on my train ride in Lille to get to the stadium, I bumped into parents parents of some of the women's players, and they were saying too, they were all kind of scattered all over the place. And that was certainly the case in my experience watching the men play, that we were a bit spread out all over. But there were definitely lots of Canadians there, lots of red and white, lots of Maple Leafs. So yeah, no shortage of Canadian content, even if we were all kind of spread out all over.
I guess spread out, and then you can kind of conquer from there, right? To make sure you have a presence in every section, then you just slowly start to take over.
Right.
Tell me overall, Doug, just about the experience. I know we were messaging earlier this week. You were telling me about all the events you got to see in Paris. What would be your one or two standout memories from everything you got to see?
Oh wow, Brian, that's a good question. I mean, it was just fun. I'm an Olympic junkie. I've loved it since I was a little kid. And my first memory, even though I didn't go, was the Commonwealth Games here in '78, and I got to go to the World University Games in '83. And now I work for the organization that puts on the World University Games, so I get to participate. So I've loved multi-sport events forever. So I've been to a Winter Games now to be at my first Summer Olympics. It was just pretty thrilling to be in the city. I got there the day of the opening ceremony. I didn't go to the opening, but I was in the city, and you could just sort of sense the vibe. It's a massive city, obviously, but you could sense the vibe. As soon as you got off the train, there's volunteers everywhere and people smiling and happy. And so that's kind of the initial memory for me, is just being there and being part of it. As far as specific memory, it was, we saw everything from field hockey to table tennis to beach volleyball. Got to see Canada men's volleyball play Slovenia. Beach volleyball was great. I wouldn't call myself the biggest volleyball fan in the world, but being there at the Eiffel Tower Stadium and able to, I'm looking to my left and there's the Eiffel Tower as I'm watching the competition down below me. That was pretty exciting. Going to Roland Garros and getting to watch tennis. You got to see Leila Fernandez, and obviously tennis. Grand Slam tennis events are so much fun because you can walk the grounds, go to the side courts, but then you also get the stadium opportunities. And so we got to see Leila Fernandez. She would have been 8 feet from me in stretches from where I was sitting, but then we got to go in and watch Novak Djokovic take on Rafael Nadal. So that was pretty exciting too. And Nadal, not in his best form, but down love 4 in the second set, comes back and ties it, and the stadium's going crazy because, of course, he's a legend there. So, but just honestly, overall, just being in the city and seeing everyone walking around from countries all over the planet, and just getting to experience being in the venues and seeing some great competition, even for sports that I wouldn't normally watch. Just that overall experience, I think, for me, is what I've always loved about multi-sport events, and it was absolutely no different in Paris. It was a lot of fun, and of course, Paris is a great city, so just to get to poke around different neighborhoods in the city and experience some of that was pretty fun as well. So yeah, an awesome experience.
Yeah, sounds like a trip of a lifetime, Doug. I'm glad you got to experience that, and thank you for joining us this morning, sharing some of your thoughts and reflections on that.
My pleasure. Anytime, guys. Appreciate the chat.
All right, Doug. Take care. We'll catch up again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brian.
You are listening to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. My name is Brian Swain. Alongside me is our producer, Ryan Reed. This is our last show, our last segment of the season. Actually, we're just doing a shortened show today, and this will be it. And we'll be coming back to you again in the fall. And our regular host, Paul Sir, will be joining us to close out with a few words at the end of this segment. But Ryan and I are going to talk Olympics here for a few more minutes, because that is what is top of everybody's mind right now. And first, of course, as far as that goes, we'll get to the poll. Ryan, give us the results from Twitter.
So we were talking about that Canadian Olympic team. We've been mentioning this whole show here. Which player they missed the most? The options were Andrew Wiggins, Zach Edey, Benedict Mathurin, and Shaden Sharp. So far, it's been a landslide voting for two people. Andrew Wiggins and Zach Edey make up 90% of the vote combined. So Wiggins
Wow.
at 44%, Edey at 46%, and it makes sense, honestly. We need a bigger body, and while Mathurin and Shaden Sharp are phenomenal players in their own right, they're both more like shifty guards and bigger guys, and we already have a couple shifty guards. Although Jamal Murray was anything but shifty in that series. But with Zach Edey, a bigger guy, that makes sense why he gets the vote. He's actually leading by 2% on Andrew Wiggins. And Andrew Wiggins, again, a solid 6'8", and can guard those bigger guys. And the poll checks out as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting. Okay, let's get into this a little bit then. So here's how I'll look at this. Obviously, there we have three guys that are wings in Wiggins, Sharp, and Mathurin, and guys who can score. And then Edey is that big man that I think everyone thought the team needed. And obviously, as it turned out against France, they were sorely lacking, and it was one of the big reasons that they lost that game. I'm going to ask you this, Ryan. They did need a big man, obviously, for sure. Probably could have used a couple of them. Was Zach Edey that big man that they needed? Because Zach Edey, and we haven't seen him. We've seen him a bit in FIBA at in the age group level. We haven't seen him in the NBA yet. We've basically what we're going off of was what we've seen from him the last 4 years at Purdue in the NCAA, where he's been. He's not the quickest of foot, we'll say that, and he's not probably the best interior defender, even despite his size. So with that in mind, could he have provided what this team was missing?
I do think it's slightly overrated, the effect that he would have on the team, but it's still, he's a positive overall. Because again, worst case scenario is don't play him. And he's in this extra spot. There's a lot of guys on the team who are just not playing. And again, if Zach Edey didn't work, they could just not play him.
Right.
That's not to discredit Dwight Powell. Actually, and Kelly Olynyk, I thought they played fairly okay.
I thought Kem Birch too.
Kem Birch actually had flashes too. That's a good point. And Kem Birch is that legit 7-foot guy too. They played within themselves. They played good for who they were. But again, who they were is not really up to Joel Embiid, AD, Bam Adebayo, Nikola Jokic, Rudy Gobert, Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah,
everybody
everyone
right? has an all-time, all-world center.
Yeah,
and we just didn't. So, I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, he was an interesting one too. I mean, because he's so young too, and you put him in that situation. Who knows what he would have given you? I mean, if we're the only other name I could think of, Ryan, that's even out there that would be a possibility for Canada to fill that role would be a rapidly aging Tristan Thompson.
We're not bringing Tristan Thompson. He's like a 6'8" center, and he is. He's more of an analyst at this point. I think I remember last season, I think he was an analyst, and then he got assigned to a 10-day with the Cavs.
He was back with the Cavs and actually didn't look that, playing about teams. 8 or 9 minutes a game off the bench.
He
useful.
Showed up. He was just from the studio right to the court.
I thought he was actually, again, playing 8 or 9 minutes a night. That's all he was asked to do. It wasn't much, but I thought he was effective in that role for a young Cavs team, and actually for everything that he's done in all of his off-court transgressions, which kind of raised a lot of eyebrows. I thought he was actually a good, positive veteran influence for that Cavs team last season. He was never really in the mix for. I don't think he was at any of the training camps for Team Canada. I'm not sure if there was any question that he would even be part of that team in the first place. Let's look at the other three names on that list really quickly. Then we had Wiggins, Sharp, and Mathurin. I'm going to go back to what Paul said when he was on. Paul's not the biggest Wiggins supporter, so he was not that thrilled with Wiggins. I loved what Wiggins did in the qualifiers 3 years ago. I thought he played tremendous in that tournament. Of course, Canada did not get the job done, but I thought Wiggins was very good. 3 years ago is a long time for Andrew Wiggins now. I think we've seen a great, for whatever reason, maybe decline in his game over that stretch, especially this past season. He really seemed to fall off a little bit. So I'm not sure if he could have been that guy either, but the reason I we included those names, Ryan, is because, and Doug touched on it, there was points in those games against France when it's this team needs somebody to just score because Jamal Murray can't get it done.
Shea was getting triple teamed.
Shay's getting triple teamed. RJ's kicking in with what he can, but then Jamal can't get anything done, and then no one else is stepping up or doing anything either. You look down the bench, Nickeil Alexander-Walker wasn't scoring. Kelly Olynyk wasn't
barely
scoring.
Playing.
Yeah, Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks played very well again for 3 of the 4 games. He didn't score much in that game against France.
Was hustling it he was crazy. He just couldn't really score, but he was. I think Lou Dort was one of the better players for the team.
Lou Dort, but Lou Dort again is not getting a guy you're going to turn to.
But he was diving
for
after stuff, and I think he was awesome.
No, he was amazing for what his role is being the defender and that hustle guy. He's perfect. He's not the guy that you want to look to be okay, somebody's got to step up and pull us through here. So looking at those three guys, Ryan, who do you think would be the one that, in that moment on Tuesday when Canada's down 12 and everyone's no one can get a bucket to fall, you look down on the bench and be like, yes, this is the guy we can put in there, go to, and he can drag us back into this game?
I just want to touch on a quick point from Scalding Gord, just following up here related to that. He was talking about the reason that basketball is growing in Canada. Maybe I'll get your opinion on it too, Brian, before I answer the question. Was it NBA teams coming, or was it people like Paul who grew the game at the grassroots level? Do you think it's more of the big level NBA stuff, or is it?
Oh man, that's a heck of a question. Or the grassroots? That's a tremendous question. I think it's this is going to be a lazy out for me, but it's chicken egg kind of thing. Like I don't know if one necessarily happens without the other, and one has to happen. You know, the at the NBA level that can introduce kids to the game, but then it's people like Paul at the community level that then channel that newfound interest and get them into the games in different ways. So that would be my quick take on that. But that's a heck of a question. Scalding Gord coming with the flaming hot questions.
Scalding questions, one could argue.
Yes. Well, there you go.
So, and then one more text here from Nick. He just asked, sorry, not Nick, Chad Ferguson asked, how did the 3x3 team do? They did lose in the semifinals to Germany.
They lost the semifinals to Germany and then lost in the bronze, and both were heartbreakers. I can't remember which one. One was overtime, and the other
Germany was overtime. They lost 16-15.
And the other one was
like
one or 2 points, I think it was. It
3
came right
points.
down. Yeah.
The States beat them by 3 points in the bronze medal game, and then Germany went on to win against Spain in the gold medal game 17-16. And in men, the Netherlands beat France in the finals 18-17. Lithuania beat Latvia in the bronze medal game. Yeah,
the mighty Americans got upset, I believe, in the quarterfinals in the men. So, I mean, hey, 3x3, a 10-minute game, man. There's nothing guaranteed. Hats off to our Canadian girls. Of course, Michelle and Catherine from Edmonton, they gave it everything to make it happen, and it's just that's the way it goes sometimes in 3x3.
And Nick actually gave a possible solution for the whole question you kind of posed to me earlier, but Zach Edey solves a lot of it, he says. Offense drives up and just throws it down to him 5 to 6 post-ups a game. I feel like in theory that works, but I'm not sure in game if that's the way to do it. I don't know. Zach Edey is very good, and to your point, it does make sense that him on the post up, it has worked in college before, but it feels like him throwing it down low. I don't know how he does against Joel Embiid or even against those French bigs, Wembanyama and Gobert, who barely played. But
I guess, I mean, to your point, Ryan, if you had him there, like, you know, there's only one way to find out.
Yeah, it gives an option at least. When it's like everything's, the offense is run dry and Shea's getting just running around with 3 guys running after him. Jamal Murray's just wide open because they're not even respecting him, and Lou Dort's just chilling in the corner. I guess you kind of need a guy just to dump it down. So honestly, Nick, that's not a bad idea. And again, we all wanted him on the team. He's obviously better than what the bottom of the barrel guys that we had on the team. But I don't know if that gets us the gold or maybe gets us to a medal position, but
You never know. I know we're about to close out here really quick. Paul is going to, as I said, have a few final words to say as we wrap up our season here on Sports 1440. I want to give a quick shout out to we have the Canadian Basketball National Championships going on this weekend. All 4 Alberta teams are playing in the bronze medal games today. The 15 under girls game has already gone final. Alberta took it to BC. So the 15 under girls have won bronze. It's Alberta's first medal at the 15 girls age level since 2009. So a massive accomplishment. Congratulations to all the girls, and good luck to the rest of the teams as they continue playing on today. Ryan, before you and I get out of here, you have any final thoughts?
It was a great season that we were able to reintroduce the show, I guess. Well, for me, introduce. I've never been on this before, but it was a great ride, and I appreciate you and Paul taking me in, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It's been great having you, and your rookie year has wrapped. I think, you know what? I'm going to say this right now. I think you're in running for Rookie of the Year.
Am I in running for Rookie of the Year? Okay.
I think you are, yeah. So we'll see if we win that award. I'm not going to win MVP. I know that. Maybe I'll get some votes for 6th man. We'll see. But no, thank you for everybody. Player of the Year. Exactly. It's been, we were off the air since 2020, so to come back and have all the listeners follow us and just getting to do this again and talk to our old friends like Doug and everybody who was part of the show, it's been a thrill. So,
do you know the exact day we're back?
I do not yet, although Paul may have some details in his forthcoming message, which we'll all be hearing here. Yeah. So as we head out, thank you from myself and Ryan. You've been listening to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440, and our great host, Paul Sir, is going to send us into the off season.
I want to thank everybody for listening this year, as it's been a real privilege to bring the basketball show back to Sports 1440 and to be able to talk about the sport certainly that I love, but that so many people love, and that continues to become more and more a part of Canadian life. I have a number of people, though, that I do want to say thank you to today. Brian and Ryan, who have helped make this show possible. I can't thank you enough for your dedication, your expertise, and your willingness to throw yourself into making this show possible. I also want to thank the great people here at Sports 1440, Susan, Marty, Jackie, and all of the other folks that have helped so much. And of course, then Connor and his group of great producers who have stepped in and helped make the show possible. I'm also considering myself as a sixth man on a very, very great team, a championship team with Kevin Carius, Lowtide, and Jason Greger heading up the lineup here on Sports 1440 and bringing you the best in sports coverage every single day of the week. Others that have made this show possible, particularly the Edmonton Stingers and the CEBL. It's been a fantastic season this year. Being able to both be the color man on the Stinger broadcast, but also be able to talk with Coach Baker, with players, to give everybody a feeling for what the team is all about as they continue to establish themselves as such a significant part of the Edmonton sports community. Of course, our 3x3 Hoop City event was the title sponsor all year. It was a fantastic event. The passion for 3x3 globally continues to grow as it was showcased in the Paris Olympics. Of course, our hearts go out to our Edmonton-based Michelle and Catherine Plouffe, along with Paige and Casey from Southern Alberta, who represented our city and Canada so well with a fourth place finish. Even though I know they wanted a medal, they are certainly gold medalists in our eyes because of the quality people that they are. I also want to thank the generosity of our sponsors, Clearport, Innovative Benefits, and all of our community champions such as EBOA, EBA, Alberta Wheelchair, Fresh Nets, at the Africa Center, such great people who walk the walk, as we talk about every week in our community, making so many basketball opportunities possible, not just for our youth, but for all of our citizens in Edmonton. But I want to say I'm most grateful to everyone who's listened as we, as I mentioned before, worked hard to bring you great basketball coverage, everything from our community leagues to youth sports, NCAA men and women, the WNBA, NBA, and now finally the Olympics. Thank you all for listening every week. And as I close out every week, I'd like to close out this message with remembering my son Ben, who passed away almost a year and a half ago. And we miss Ben terribly, and always want to remind people, as Ben lived his life, to make sure you understand what others may be going through, because if we're not walking in their shoes, we don't know what they might be struggling with at the time. And make sure that you always tell those that you love them as often as you can. You can never say that enough. Work with energetic action every day. Make sure you're making the world a better place. And we hope that basketball always makes this world a better place. Thanks so much for listening once again, and we'll look forward to talking with you again in the fall. God bless.